The night the king was meant to die, the air felt thick with fear. The sky turned a deep blood red, and clouds rolled in, covering the moon like a dark, twisted veil. In the village, no one dared to leave their homes. Children were hushed and told to sleep, and the elders murmured words of protection to ward off evil. Even the animals hid in silence. Every living thing sensed the coming of something dreadful. But inside the palace, King Doro was unshaken. He sat on his throne, chin held high, his face a mask of defiance. He would not die tonight. Not even the gods could force him to. When the village seer had spoken of his death many years before, he had laughed. The gods may take other men when they wish, he had said, but I am no ordinary man. I am the ruler of this land, and no god will dictate my end. That prophecy had been a whispered rumor for years, a secret that traveled in hushed voices. Many thought the king had long forgotten it, but they were wrong. King Doro remembered every word the seer had spoken. As the years passed, he became more obsessed with his own survival, more desperate to prove that no force could touch him. So, when the red sky signaled the arrival of the foretold night, he prepared. He called upon the most powerful healers in the land, demanding that they protect him with their strongest spells. He wore amulets and charms, layered in gold and silver, each blessed to ward off death. He surrounded himself with the strongest warriors, each armed with spears tipped in sacred oils, meant to guard him against any spirits that might come. As midnight approached, the village seer arrived at the palace, her face weary, her voice soft and somber. She was no longer young, and her hair, once thick and black, was now white as bone. She looked at the king with sorrow in her eyes. "Your Majesty," she began, "the gods have spoken. Tonight is the night of your death. It is not a punishment, it is simply the natural order. Your time has come. You must accept it with honor." But King Doro laughed in her face. "You speak as if I am a weak old man, willing to bow to fate," he scoffed. "But I am King Doro, ruler of these lands. No fate, no god, will take me before I am ready." The seer lowered her gaze, a sad smile tugging at her lips. "The gods are patient, my king. They do not need to force you. Your own refusal will bring their justice." She turned to leave, her footsteps echoing down the grand hall. As she departed, the air grew colder, and a strange silence settled over the palace. Midnight came, and with it, a deafening clap of thunder. The palace trembled as if struck by an earthquake, and every torch in the hall flickered, casting eerie, twisting shadows across the walls. The king's guards glanced around nervously, their eyes wide with fear. Yet King Doro remained unshaken. He gripped the arms of his throne, his expression fierce. Outside, the villagers huddled together in terror. They could see a dark mist swirling around the palace, shrouding it in shadow. Some said they could hear whispers carried on the wind, voices calling out in a language long forgotten. Others swore they saw figures moving within the mist, ghostly shapes that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Back in the palace, King Doro stood from his throne, his hand resting on the hilt of his ceremonial sword. He heard footsteps approaching, slow and deliberate, echoing down the hall. A figure appeared, stepping out from the shadows at the far end of the room. It was tall, cloaked in black, with no face that could be seen. Its form seemed to shift and blur, as if it were made of smoke. When it spoke, its voice was cold and hollow, filling the air like a winter storm. "King Doro," it said, "you have defied the gods, denied the will of the spirits, and disrespected the natural order of life and death." King Doro clenched his jaw, refusing to show fear. "I am the king of these lands," he said, his voice steady. "I decide my own fate." The figure tilted its head, as if considering his words. "You believe yourself above death, above the gods. But you are mistaken. By refusing your fate, you have summoned a darkness that will follow you beyond this life. The figure raised a bony, skeletal hand, pointing directly at the king. A sharp pain shot through Noro's chest, searing like fire. He gasped, clutching at his heart, but he did not fall. The pain spread, consuming his body, yet he could still stand, still breathe. The pain grew, unrelenting, tearing through his flesh and bones, but he did not die. He realized then that this was no ordinary curse. The gods had taken his mortality, trapping him in a state of endless suffering, a punishment worse than death. He would live forever, but every moment would be filled with unimaginable pain. Hours passed. The palace remained dark, and no sound escaped its walls. The villagers waited outside, praying for the king's soul. When dawn finally broke, the people noticed that the palace was shrouded in shadow, as if a dark cloud hovered over it. The sun rose, but no light touched the palace. It was as if it had been swallowed by darkness. Weeks passed, and the villagers began to hear strange noises from the palace. Sometimes, at night, they would hear a low, haunting groan, like the cry of a wounded animal. Other times, they would hear footsteps echoing through the halls, though no one was there. Rumors spread that the king was trapped inside, unable to die, forced to endure endless torment. Months turned into years, and the palace became abandoned. No one dared to enter its gates, and the villagers began to avoid even looking at it. They said that it was cursed, a place where the spirits lingered, watching over the king's suffering. Some claimed to see his shadow through the palace windows, pacing back and forth, forever searching for a way to escape. As time passed, the story of King Noro became a legend. Parents told their children of the king who refused to die, warning them of the dangers of defying the gods. The palace was swallowed by vines and trees, the forest reclaiming it piece by piece. Yet, those who walked near its grounds still claimed they could hear a low, painful groan, as if someone or something was trapped within its walls. And so, King Noro's story became a lesson for the people, a tale passed down through generations, that no one, not even a king, can escape fate. That defying the gods leads only to suffering and darkness, a life worse than death itself. To this day, the elders say to their children, remember, there is a power greater than any man, and it is to be respected. For the day a man denies his fate is the day he begins his true suffering. And those who pass by the forgotten palace avert their eyes, whispering prayers, lest they draw the attention of the cursed king who refused to die. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.